Hello and welcome to another Behind the Scenes Weather Sea Turtle Special Part 2. Join me in taking a look at some never-before-seen photos and videos to learn exactly what goes on when a sea turtle comes to the National Marine Life Center for triage and rehabilitative care after a cold stunning event. See how we provide care for them, how we feed them, and exactly what goes into preparation for a release. Note that these sea turtles are going to begin their journey arriving on the beach, being blown ashore by the wind and the waves. From there, they are rescued by an organization known as Mass Audubon at Wellfleet Bay's sanctuary. This is the group responsible for response and rescue of the sea turtles, and then they are brought to a triage facility. After being picked up from the beaches by Mass Audubon Wellfleet Bay sanctuary volunteers, the turtles are brought to a triage facility. Historically, New England Aquarium's Animal Care Center in Quincy was the only triage facility in the state of Massachusetts. In the winter of 2019, National Marine Life Center became the second triage facility in the state of Massachusetts. National Marine Life Center can bring in about 35 Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles, or a few fewer depending if we have any loggerheads that year, for rehabilitation purposes. For triage purposes, the National Marine Life Center can handle up to 8 individual turtles at a time. Now, thanks to the donations raised by Giving Friday in 2019, we'll have a second incubator for the 2020 sea turtle stranding season, raising our capacity to care for more sea turtles than ever before during a triage situation. Funnily enough, they are brought in banana boxes. It's a really simple and effective way to transport lots of small turtles like the Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles that strand by the hundreds in the fall and winter. They come in really rough shape for triage. This first batch of 8 sea turtles was brought in directly from the beach, Sandwich Beach in Massachusetts. They look very darkened from the extreme hypothermia. They're covered in algae because they were no longer moving out at sea, so slow that algae could grow on their carapace and even on their skin. The bruising shows up right away and shows up as a purplish color. They're not moving, and at this point, it's critical that we get them evaluated really quickly and then into our incubator. When we're looking at turtles, we set them up just like this, with a towel flat underneath them and a donut towel or towel all rolled up and under their front flippers and chest head area. This allows them to stay comfortable and give them support. It also sometimes helps prevent them from wiggling around too much. For triage and evaluations, it's all hands on deck. Here you can see one of our volunteers safely restraining this sea turtle, Kiko, while one of our animal care team members works to evaluate that turtle. And our veterinarians are all here with us on site when we are receiving these sea turtles from a triage situation or when they're brought in after having been triaged and looking for long-term secondary rehabilitative care. During this initial exam, we're going to be checking a few things. First and foremost, we're going to be getting a temperature and then a heart rate and a respiration rate. It would be difficult to listen to a sea turtle's heart rate using a stethoscope because of the carapace and plastron that shell in the way. So we use a Doppler ultrasound device to listen to the heart rate. It sounds like a swishing or a swooshing, which is really hard to imitate, but that allows us to diagnose any decreases in blood flow or get a scope of how severe that hypothermia is. We'll also be collecting different measurements of carapace length, width, depth to give us a sense of how much that animal has been able to eat over the past couple of months, if at all, how much weight they might have lost, and we're looking at overall body condition. Are there scrapes, bruises, damage to the flippers, the carapace, the plastron? What do we notice? Because many times when these sea turtles are no longer moving, they could be hit up against rocks and they're at an increased risk for boat strikes and different entanglements and predations, so we can see a lot of wounds. Once that initial exam is done, it's time to put them in the incubator. Because they came in so cold, we can only warm them up about 5 degrees a day, otherwise we can shock the internal organs and their body systems. So, the incubator is a temperature-controlled environment, allowing us to carefully ease up the internal body temperature 5 degrees a day. Other turtles are not our triage patients. They've been triaged at another facility, the New England Aquarium's Marine Animal Care Center, and then brought to us for long-term care and rehabilitation. This is Bruce, a loggerhead sea turtle, one of the patients that came to us from the New England Aquarium's Animal Care Center for long-term rehabilitative care. One of the things that happens in a triage situation is prescribed swim time. It's almost like physical therapy for turtles that have been cold stunned. Because they weren't moving, we have to re-stimulate those muscles and get them active again and build up that strength to being able to swim as well as they could before. We're able to get them back to swimming carefully by at first having them on hand, like is shown here, where we're supporting them and they're able to start moving their flippers again as soon as they're ready. Sometimes we can help stimulate that movement of the flippers by rolling water over them or gently pinching. Then, once they start moving, we'll let them go on their own. We're carefully watching to see if the flippers are moving in synchronized patterns, as well as if they are taking breaths often enough. If the turtle looks like it's struggling, we step in again to help. That swim time may only last 5 to 15 minutes at first, but will gradually go longer as they gain strength. Eventually, they'll be able to spend all of their time in the pool, swimming freely. Our next job is then to get the sea turtles eating again. It takes a little bit for their appetite to come back to them. Sometimes they're not even hungry at the time that we've fed them. So we might have to wait around a little bit, waiting until they decide they are hungry for what we're offering, and then tallying out and counting up exactly what they eat so that later we can determine the weight in grams of what they ate, making sure that each sea turtle was able to get their nutritional requirements for the day and ensure that they're growing when we weigh them out almost daily. We try to provide a lot of extra enrichment or environmental enrichment devices to all of our patients at the National Marine Life Center. For turtles, sometimes we're lucky enough to be able to give them green crabs. Green crabs are an invasive species in Massachusetts, and so it's a win-win in that we are lowering the population of an invasive species which outcompetes other crabs that are native to Massachusetts and New England, as well as being able to provide the sea turtles with an opportunity to hunt and engage with their food in a different way. Environmental enrichment devices are meant to stimulate the mind and body and help get them ready for release. This is a behavior they would normally do in the wild, and one of the food sources they would normally rely on is crustaceans. While they're swimming and eating on their own now, we still bring them out of their pools in order to do weekly health checks and administer any treatments or medications. We actually bring them out by using a pool scooper very, very gently to lift them up out of the water and carefully bring them over to an area where one of our animal care team volunteers or staff members can gently restrain them and lift them out. A typical exam and a now improving sea turtle will look like this. If you remember Kiko, this is how he looks after just a few months of being rehabilitated. Here he is when we first started. Look at that difference. A lot of different treatments can be prescribed for sea turtles depending on their ailments and injuries. Right now, this turtle is receiving subcutaneous or underneath the skin fluids. Fluid hydration is critical in helping the turtles make sure that they stay healthy. Fluids are crucial because at times the sea turtles aren't eating for a while after they begin their rehabilitative care. They're not yet strong enough to eat and they don't have that interest yet. And the sea turtles in the wild would get all of their hydration from the food that they eat. When they're not eating, we have to make sure that we keep their hydration levels up. And this is why we provide subcutaneous fluids. Also, recheck their heart rate using that Doppler radar we spoke of earlier in the video. This turtle is receiving a treatment in the form of a soak in warm water and baby shampoo, recommended by our veterinarian after he had a blockage in his cloaca. This gentle soak will help keep the area clean. We will also look at radiographs or x-rays in order to look at bone health. Sea turtles are now known to exhibit something called osteolysis. Osteolysis is a loss of inner bone tissue, suspected to be due in part to the reduction in blood flow to the inner bone tissues during the cold stunning hypothermia state. After several months or even years of rehabilitative care, sea turtles are often ready to be released back to the wild where they belong. One organization, known as Turtles Fly 2, helps us to get the sea turtles where they need to go to the warmest waters possible, where it's safe for them to swim. More often, though, the National Marine Life Center partners with multiple other organizations and aquariums along the east coast of the United States to get the turtles back down to Georgia or Florida for release. Many people hate final exams, but the National Marine Life Center, we love them. Final exams mean that a sea turtle is being examined for release and is ready to go. Here you see a couple of our animal care volunteers and staff members early in the morning getting ready to help a few of our Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles get prepared for release. One of the things we'll do to make sure that they are ready for their trip is to cover them in surgical lubrication to make sure that their shell and their skin doesn't dry out along the way. Do you remember our friend Kiko? Look at how amazing he looks now right before he's ready for release. He's actually about to be packed up and ready to go, but here he is when he came in. This transformation is what makes our jobs worth it, and knowing that he will go on to contribute to his species population growth. Often, we are lucky enough to send some of our volunteers and staff members to Georgia or Florida for the release, depending on if the turtles fly or are driven down. Here you can see Bruce having made it all the way, ready to be released back to the wild. We're really excited to share with you some of the clips from this year's release from our 2019-2020 stranding group. Here's our animal care team manager carrying one of the first Kemp's-Ridleys to be released back down to the beach. And if you saw, they flap quite a bit now that they've got that strength back in their flippers. It's a little startling to be back on the beach, but eventually they make it to the water just fine. And we're going for it. This is Blackheart, one of the other Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles ready for release. Going, gone, back into the water. These are the moments that make it all worthwhile to us at the National Marine Life Center. But we still have 4 Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles here with us, waiting to be released, as their care is taking a little bit longer. Many of them are suffering from complications such as pneumonia and osteolysis. Here we have for you about 5 minutes of uninterrupted sea turtle swimming time, so you can get to know our friends that are still with us, Tutus, Compass, Milo, and turtle number 44, currently being named by our interns from the 2019 summer season. Sea turtle rehabilitation at the National Marine Life Center is near and dear to our hearts and the hearts of many. There are 7 species of sea turtles worldwide, all of which are endangered. The National Marine Life Center and the aquariums and members of the Sea Turtle Stranding Network of New England mostly work with the Kemp's-Ridley sea turtle, as they are the most frequently stranded species along Cape Cod during the cold stunning events. Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles are the smallest of all 7 species and also the most critically endangered. They are one of 2 species that are known to exhibit Arabada nesting behavior. This is when all of the females nesting at that time come ashore at one time and all nest together, therefore reducing predation during that time, and as well as when the hatchlings all erupt from the nests at about the same time. Working with the Kemp's-Ridley sea turtle is definitely a privilege. Whenever we have a stressful day, which is more often during these troubling times, we love to come and watch our sea turtles swim, just to get a sense of peace. We hope you enjoy watching them as well. We could not do the work that we do without the support of volunteers, sponsors, friends, and donations. If you would like to help the National Marine Life Center care for more sea turtles during the 2020 sea turtle stranding season that runs approximately through October through December and rehabilitation taking months after or even years, go online to nmlc.org and consider a symbolic patient adoption of a sea turtle. Make sure to tune in for all of the National Marine Life Center's virtual programs coming to you soon. Thank you for joining me on another Behind the Scenes.